All right. That. Okay, we should be streaming and recording. So, Ren, if you want to go ahead and start the meeting, we'll do roll.
Yeah, let's call the meeting to order. Just to start out, let me tell everyone right off the bat, when we get to item 6, old business, we're going to jump immediately to 7.3 on new business, and then go back to the agenda as put out. First order of business is roll call. I'll do that. Ren Blight's here. Fred, he's going to be here as far as I know. Tess Taylor is here. Mark Stevenson is excused. Robert Sabelli is here. Jonathan Gregory is here. Ron Babini is here. And Lee Jamison is not here yet. So we'll go forward. We have a quorum. The first item of business is the minutes. Motion A, approve GTLNC September 12th, 2022 Plum Committee minutes. Is there a first?
Jonathan.
Tess first.
Tess and Jonathan, okay. Okay. Are there any comments, corrections, anything that anyone wants to?
Jonathan has his hand up.
Thank you.
Hi, Jonathan.
I read over the minutes. There's what's missing for me is the minutes are probably something people use to make meetings, organize their meetings in the future. At least hopefully they are. Remember, Ren, you brought up that thing about I forget what we call it, but it's guidelines for developers and people applying for permits. Remember that?
Yeah, COA, yeah.
COA, that's it.
Yeah.
What it's, everything we do should be directly aligned with the benefit for stakeholders. So I recommend you add to the minutes what it is that's missing, what it is we're supposed to achieve rather than just look at them. That's what's absent for me. In other words, I think it's a worthy purpose, it's a worthy project, but I'm not sure what the benefit is asked the benefit for stakeholders. I think we should include that in the minute notes so that it will be addressed or it won't be addressed based on what the benefit is for stakeholders. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I made a note.
And Ren, you have a David Wheatley from the stakeholders has his hand raised. Let me know if you want.
Okay.
To bring him on. Okay, David.
All right, thanks. Yeah, David Wheatley, and there's been some confusion over the years about what minutes are. Minutes are a report of what happened during the meeting. And if things are left out that people wanted included, usually it's because the people at the meeting didn't say them. So if there's no public benefit for something, we can't put it in now and say, well, there should be. If they didn't say it then, it doesn't go in the minutes now. And also, I'd like to request that these meetings start on time, whether there's a quorum or not. You can always make decisions with a quorum, but people log on here, take time out of their day to sit around, and the recording should start right away as soon as 6:30 rolls around to the dot. And if you could tighten all that up, please, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments on the minutes?
I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, hold on. I have Tess Taylor.
Yeah, and Colby, if you like, I'd be happy to help moderate. Unless
Actually, Fred just texted me. He's going to be on in 10 minutes. So I'll
okay.
If you want to do it, that's fine. Or I'll do it.
I'm happy to handle questions and help Ren in that way. But I do have
okay. All right, hold on. I'll make you. I should do this. I should make. I'll make you a host.
Okay.
And then you can go ahead and then make everyone else hosts. Actually, you should go ahead and make Ren a host also. Okay, after I make you a host. Just Taylor. Okay, you're host now, and I'm gonna jump off in a few minutes.
Okay,
And
so thank you, Colby. So I can help, manage questions and so forth, Ren, until Fred gets here, if you need me to. And I do have a couple comments. The first one on the minutes, 6.1, the City Planning Department Community Plan. I think it needs to be there that they will be coming back because we have asked them some questions, that this was a very preliminary meeting without much notice. And there are a number of questions that our committee has asked that, they're to essentially report back. I think it would be helpful to have that in the minutes. And as far as this form and underpass parking goes, what we did allocate from this current, okay. Project about how this would fit in. Okay, I think I'm okay with the rest of this. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, good. If there are no other comments, we'll go ahead and vote on the minutes. Let's see. Ren Blight, aye. Art Stevenson's absent. Jonathan. I heard, I saw his lips go aye.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, Fred's, Robert,
Yes.
Tess,
Yes, but as amended,
right,
please. Okay, with those item from Jonathan and me, please. Thank you.
right. Ron
Yes.
and Lee is still not available. Okay, public comments, 3 minutes. Do we have any hands raised?
Let's see. Yes, we
David,
have David Wheatley. Go ahead, David.
Can you unmute me, please?
You are unmuted.
Great, thank you very much. Nice to see 3 people on my phone. And I saw a couple people at Tessa's deal a week or 2 ago. That was nice. I too favor in-person meetings. The gorilla of development continues to stomp out the zoning that the city had, including single-family neighborhoods. They stomped out, the gorilla stomped on Cahuenga Bloomfield, and now we have a 4-story building going in there years later. And this is all across the city. In fact, it's all over the world, as I can understand it. And everybody is afraid of gorillas, except for a few people. Occasionally, there's somebody in a land use group who will stand up against them, but usually the land use committee's cape, oh, they didn't come to us. They don't have to come to us. It's TOC. It's density bonus. Nothing we can do. It's coming from Sacramento. It's hopeless. Throw up our hands in despair and quiver in the corner. This is the norm. Every now and then, I find somebody on a procedural level who's willing to step up. And I think, oh, great, they're going to be on this committee and they will fight to the death against the gorilla. But something strange happens. A meeting like this starts early. It's not recorded. It's not officially on the record. And I feel being excluded right from the moment I log in. And I'm wondering to myself, do these people really have what it takes to fight this stuff off? And I have friends on here who are fighters. I really urge you to continue the fight and not put up with this stuff. And that's what I got for you. Thanks.
any other comments? Okay.
David?
I'm sorry, Tess?
I said, thank you, David.
Oh, okay. Go on to committee member news and announcements. I want to congratulate Jonathan on passing all of his tests. He's now fully trained and whatever for our committee. Any comments on the training, Jonathan?
And truthfully, I thought it was dreadful. The course having to do with this committee, it's called 101 something. It's really slow. It's almost unbearable. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's sort of the lowest common denominator, and somebody who's really been around this for a while, it's just real slow. At least you're through it. Any other news or comments? Okay. If not, we'll move on to, as I mentioned, we'll move right to 7.3, the proposal for permit parking district in the 5,000 block of Auckland Avenue. And Louise, you want to go ahead and make your presentation?
Yes, thank you so much for doing this right at the beginning of your meeting. First, I want to start with, yes, my name is Louise Gentry. I represent the homeowners for the 5,000 to 5145 block of Auckland Avenue. As you first issue is, I want to thank you for being there and taking care of our great Toluca Lake, which I absolutely adore. And we're all very grateful for all of your efforts and your work. I know a lot of you guys do this pro bono. Thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart, and all of my neighbors. So as you know, recently the city of LA approved 5 new apartment buildings on the 5,047 to 5,5145 block of Cahuenga Boulevard, which is 1 block away from us on Auckland. Only 2 of these new buildings have opened for rental, and 3 will come up soon. They have not opened yet. So this will be 5 new buildings on 1 single block. The situation is become, the parking is become a real situation. So we already have the patronage of 2 restaurants around the corner from us on Auckland and Magnolia. We have a very popular dog grooming shop. We have also an acting class. So we're used to this traffic on Auckland, and we've encouraged and assist as much as we can. But now with the new buildings, the increase has resulted in unsafe traffic conditions, and the the dwellers have been using our street as a parking lot, not just for a few hours as the restaurant would or the class would, but this is people come all day, all night, and some of them for several days, some of them for weeks, and we've even had people park for months. So on the northeast side of Auckland, we also have no sidewalks. So the parents and the children there are constantly weaving their way around apartment dwellers' cars to play in front of their own homes. And it's become a real dangerous thing. Plus, we have people driving at unbelievable speed, which is really scary to all of us. We've never had this before. I've been here for 22 years. We have amazing complaints from the neighbors where trash, people park so close to their trash on pickup days that the trash are not being picked up. There's elderly people that have to walk. They're forced to park at unreasonable distances from their homes. These have become very difficult conditions for us. It's affecting our property value. People are concerned with this all of a sudden increased amount of traffic. So we love our neighborhood here in Toluca Woods. We would appreciate your assistance and helping us obtain a letter of support so we can obtain from the councilman's office and the Department of Transportation parking permits or restricted parking so that we can keep this area as lovely as it's been. And again, we're not discouraging businesses because patrons come and go in an hour or two, which is okay. We're used to that. I'm used to this for the 22 years I've been here. But what I'm not used to is not being able to park in front of my home, seeing my neighbors being troubled, seeing my neighbors' children being concerned. And it's become a real situation. And 3 of the 5 buildings haven't even opened yet. So all the way down the street to the next block, neighbors have started to come to us and go, hey, have you noticed the incredible increase of parking? And we're like, yeah, we have noticed, and we're trying to do something about it. So again, we are requesting your assistance to get a letter of support so we can carry on the steps to obtain parking permit, I apologize, or restricted parking, whatever we can. And I'm not used to these meetings, so sorry. I'm a numbers person. I do accounting and taxes. So I'm not used to, I'm not a public speaker, so I apologize for that. But again, I want to thank you for your time and your support and all the efforts that you put into this Toluca Lake City, which we, again, really totally love.
Yeah, Luis, you did a great job of presenting your situation. I drove around your neighborhood the other day and I can see exactly what you're talking about. Just historically, this goes back to when Gail Goldberg was city planner. This was what, late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, wow.
An explicit policy to reduce the parking requirements, which she got passed, with the notion that people would, in a sense, be forced then to take public transit. Well, that hasn't happened, but we did. The developers, of course, love the fact that they weren't required to provide as much parking because, that's always a cost for projects and not a maker. So the bottom line is we're living in the history of it was a real policy on the part of the city for a while. I think a lot of people have regretted it since, and they've begun to move away from it in a number of ways, but still it's haunting us. And the whole notion of everybody taking public transit and not needing a car, riding their bike or what have you. I mean, we're living in the shadow of all that. And you're really in the center of the target in some senses. What I'd like to do is help with your help and your neighbors. We want to put together a draft letter, and I think we'll bring it back next month, ideally, for the committee and the full board to support. Wanted to get other comments from other members of the board.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in. So, Luis,
Actually, I'm sorry, I interrupt real quick. Tess, can you let Fred in?
Oh, all right. Sorry. I'm going to allow him to talk, and I'm going to promote him to panelist. There we go. Thank you. So, quick point of clarification, Ren, Gail Goldberg was the head of city planning in the late 80s, early 90s. Is that what you said?
Yeah, she wasn't there very long, and she came in from outside and was
okay. She was the
planner, and then she went off somewhere else.
She was the head of city planning?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that woman should be tarred and feathered, because the bad effects of her horrible policy are being felt by everyone in the city of Los Angeles and beyond. And it disgusts me that people like that can get away with policies like these without giving a thought to it. And I would bet dollars to donuts that she doesn't take public transportation. But leaving that aside, Louise, I feel your pain. You have my complete support. And this is not only the horrible after effect of horrible policies, of horrible people like Gail Goldberg, but it's also, as Ren pointed out, a developer paradise because it reduces their costs when they don't have to provide as much parking. But this is my huge gripe about the misuse of public parking. Public parking is precisely that. It is public. It is for the use of the public. And when developers don't provide enough parking, whatever the requirements may be, that means the people who live in those buildings end up using the public parking. And that is a benefit to developers. That is a cost savings and money in their pocket. And it is a loss to the public because it is a privatization of a public asset. And it really enrages me to see that. So I will be the first person to sign that letter. But moreover, Louise, we have to pay attention to these developments as they come down the pike. It's really become quite bad with the state legislation that has been foisted upon us, increasing density in a way that is just out of control. And in my opinion, not even in my opinion, factually, it's not necessary. We have close to or over 100,000 vacancies in the city of Los Angeles right now, rental vacancies. So this idea that we have an affordable or that we have a housing crisis is flat out wrong. But anyway, you have my full support. Those are my comments. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Louise, I have a few questions for you. Right away, you've got the support, at least some of the board members are saying they're supportive, but nobody should be speaking until, no one should be giving you support from the neighborhood council until we actually have more information. Here's the questions that I have for you is what you're seeking is called a preferential parking district. And my first question is, have you read the procedure? In other words, it's a really repeated and well-defined process that's described on LA Department of Transportation parking.org site. So it defines that you'll need to take 6 blocks and you'll have to have signatures. You will have already had to have met with the council district and they'll have to try to solve the problem first. And if they can't, then they move to this process of petitions that need to be signed. And they're real important and they're real difficult, meaning that people say they'll sign, but we've tried it in West Toluca Lake and it was really unbearable trying to get people to go along to sign their name because people don't want to be involved, things like that. So my question is, have you read the procedure and at what point are you in it right now?
Yes, thank you. I have received the procedure from our councilman's office. I have the list of all the steps that have to be taken. Getting the support of the neighborhood council is step 1 of the list of procedure. The next step would be the meeting of the councilman's office together with the Department of Transportation and explaining our situation. So I understand where you're coming from on the signature aspect of this. We have a very, very strong, closely knit neighborhood here. And the majority of neighbors from 2 blocks here have observed this situation and they are being very supportive in writing already. So, but yes, thank you for reminding the other board members of all the steps on this. I am familiar with all of them and my neighbors are familiar with them.
Excuse me, Louise, have you already talked to the councilman's office?
They are the ones that provided me with the list and they directed me to the Greater Toluca Lake Council as the first step.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to tell you that I learned years ago is, first of all, go online and read the steps for yourself. Don't take them from anyone else because they're on the LA, as I said, LA Department of Transportation, parking.org. You'll find it really well presented. Read them and have a firsthand knowledge of it because I've seen the councilman's district, they have their hands all over all sorts of things and they get mixed up. The first thing that's supposed to happen is they're supposed to give you they're supposed to try, the councilman's office is supposed to try to resolve whatever parking problems you have. If they fail, then it moves to the next step. So the question is, have they already, they need to take a look at it with you and give you the indication that you can move forward, that it makes sense, okay? Now, here's what I discovered, is LA is what they call business friendly at all. They just seem not to care about us. They care about tax dollars flowing from businesses. And that's the problem that I remember. Just giving you a heads up on that, that's part of the obstacle course, is that they love having parking available for businesses because that increases commerce and that increases tax dollars, sales taxes, all of that. So with that said, I think you got to actually talk to the councilmen, but
But I
I'm
did.
happy to be supportive, that's for sure,
Right.
because I'm on your side.
Okay.
But you're gonna have problems because they just always take the side of businesses, and I'm happy to support you. Thanks.
Well, thank you for this. I really appreciate this. And if I may, I have spoken with the councilman's office. I've spoken to two separate aides at the councilman's office. At some point, the captain of the Department of Transportation had to get involved in some parking situations that we've already had that he tried to resolve. I again am familiar with all the steps. We've looked at all the steps. I've discussed this with our neighbors. This is not a business type situation because we are already accommodating and assisting and forwarding the businesses around the corner of Auckland and Magnolia Boulevard. There's 2 restaurants there, an acting class, a very famous groomer, and we have worked with these people and continue to work with these people and have no issues with them because it's never been an issue on our street per se. They come in an hour or 2, 5 minutes, an hour. Everybody welcomes them. We all support them. We all help them. Our issue is with tenants of the next block who come on our street and all of a sudden they've decided that this is their parking lot. They own the city. They don't care that we're homeowners. They don't care that there are businesses around the corner that are losing patrons as a result of their parking on our street. And this is where we started taking some issues and have discussed this with the Department of Transportation, as well as the councilman's office, Gregorian. So, and this is why they're actually more willing to assist us because we are not targeting the businesses. We're totally helping and happy to help businesses. We have issues with people who all of a sudden think they can use this as their parking lot for a week or 2 or a month or several days or 24 hours a day. It is ridiculous. Not only that, but the speed in which they're coming down this street now has become ridiculously dangerous. We have people with pets, with young children. We are all very concerned. I mean, my neighbor has a young baby, 5 months baby, another has a couple of year-old baby. It's, as a parent of 2, I understand the concerns. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying to assist everybody.
Thank you.
I do have another question, Louise, and that is, let's say you get your wish.
Mhm.
Where are these people coming from the next block going to park then? Any idea?
Where, I'm sorry, would you
Okay.
repeat that question?
If you get your wish, if the permanent parking or if you get exactly what you want,
Right.
what's going to happen to the people who are using that public parking now? Where will they go, or where do you think they would go, or where could they go?
Well, that's a very good question. I appreciate that. One of the things I did notice is these apartment buildings have parking for their tenants. And the smaller buildings, the already existing smaller buildings also have parking for their tenants. But as an example, I have tenants that have 2 or 3 cars that are parking on our street. And I'm like, or their guests all of a sudden are parking on our street, as opposed to parking on Cahuenga And one of the objections that I've heard from them, because I have discussed this with them, is, well, people are driving really fast on Cahuenga and I'm concerned that something's going to happen, or my car's mirror's been hit by a car driving on Cahuenga. And I'm
Well,
like, well,
Louise,
this is
Louise,
lovely,
very-
but you need
Louise.
to fight the fight with the city to reduce the speed, not with us on the next block.
Okay, well, but Louise, and leaving that aside, because that's a separate and also very important issue that can be addressed and should be addressed too. I'm just
Right.
saying, the people currently parking there are going to have to park somewhere. So,
Right.
And they can't be made to simply evaporate. So I'm just
Right.
sort of thinking ahead, how to address that. But you say there is parking, or at least there is some parking. They simply choose not to use it, or it's not available to them. I don't understand.
Well, I'm not sure what the situation is with all of the different buildings, but I can say, without sounding selfish or why has this become our problem all of a sudden? Why is the fact that the city of LA has authorized 5 apartment buildings on such a small block become now our issue to resolve?
Yeah, I've been on the warpath about that for a couple of years now. So we can talk offline about that, but the city of Los Angeles is cramming too much density into too small a space.
Right.
They want the property tax. I think Prop 13 has somewhat enabled that, because property taxes have been held, artificially low for a long period of time, and that's affected the county coffers. That's been the third rail of politics for a long time. I mean, it's a very contentious issue, but it all comes down to money. Anyway, regarding the parking, I certainly would support this. You can, put together a draft. I'd be happy to look at that, review it, help you with it in any way I can. And Jonathan is right on the money. He understands the procedure of what needs to occur. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? One thing, Louise, that caught my attention as you were talking, you shouldn't have anybody parking more than 72 hours. And that's something that you and your neighbors can all start to be tuned into. I mean, even to the point where you might put a time and date next to somebody's tire. If you've noticed somebody parking over long periods of time, the city will come in. It takes them a while, but you report it, this car has been here more than 72 hours, parked in the same place. They come out and they mark it, and then they'll come back sometime between the next day, and sometimes it's 2 or 3 days later, but eventually they will tow a car. We got one towed, I remember. It was a truck. So it can be done. And once you start to, get serious about trying to get that enforced, right, then the parking people are a little more tuned in, and they start to police some of this for you. Well, do you have, as Jonathan mentioned, you need 6 blocks. Do you think 6 blocks worth of people that are going to work with you on this?
I can't vouch for 6 blocks, but I will answer your first point. And yes, we are all very aware of the 72-hour rule. And we have contacted the Department of Transportation in many occasions, as well as abandoned vehicle. We have fought this battle and have not had any success, based on the fact that they are completely overbooked, overwhelmed. And again, this has gone on the captain of the Department of Transportation. So he is aware of our issues already. And despite the fact that he's been very willing to assist us, the most we've been able to obtain has been cars marked twice, one time a ticket, although some people have parked here for weeks, and I mean weeks, and all the way up to an entire month, literally without moving. So yes, I do get this. I didn't want to start working on the 6 blocks without having at least the permission of the council and at least the meeting of the with the Department of Transportation and the city council before I can get this. And I was told I need to obtain these things first and obtain the actual petition before I can start getting consent from the next, the 3 blocks on each side. So I'm following the steps as they were provided to us.
Yeah, and I think there are several steps in terms of getting the neighborhood council approval. Initially, what we approve is you're going forward and putting this together.
Right.
We don't agree that we agree with whatever you finally come up with, but we would. It's almost we acknowledge that there's a problem. Let's put it that way, and it needs to be dealt with. The second round would be coming back with some very specific requests, and at that point, the neighborhood council, has the. They can approve it or not, or make, suggest changes. But the bottom line is it's a 2 or sometimes 3-step process where you have to go back and forth. I certainly would recommend that you try to recruit some other people to work with you. It's frankly, it's pretty hard to do on a 1-person basis. You need partners and allies, and on other blocks, for example, and other people with other expertise to help you get this done, because it's a long process in a lot of ways. And the council office will help you, I'm pretty sure, to know what you need to do, but they just don't have the staffing to be doing it for you. So a lot of it falls on us, the citizens out there to do the legwork and put stuff together.
Well, I can totally appreciate that. And I'm, again, very familiar with the steps. We need the letter of support from our neighborhood council so we can proceed with our city council and the Department of Transportation in the next step. This is what we were asked to do. And now, of course, we have people on our blog that are very supportive and will spend the time to help and assist. I'm just here tonight as the representative for the block down the street. And because we didn't know if everybody should attend or not, or, so, but yeah, the first step we were provided with is to obtain a letter of support.
Let me ask Louise, Jonathan, do you have a question? Your hand is up.
Oh,
Jonathan, do you have a question?
yeah.
Sorry, I do not. I'll lower it.
Okay, so Louise, double check the website, the Department of Transportation, where the procedure is laid out, as Jonathan said earlier. Just verify that, because you can talk to 3 city staff and get 4 different opinions. Just look at what the policy is in writing on the website and follow that procedure, because I've had more city employees send me the wrong way than I can even count. And if you'd like to give me a call later this week, I may be able to give you a few suggestions how to get the parking enforcement up and running again. And that is a hard one, but it's a quality of life issue, and I really feel for you there. So those are my thoughts.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that. But again, this was provided to me by the Department of Transportation together with the councilman's office, Gregorian. So I am following the steps as they were provided to us. So
was this a written procedure?
Yeah, it's a written.
Then good.
Yeah, it's totally a written procedure.
Then great. Then we just need to get the letter going, and
exactly.
I guess we'll go from there.
Exactly. So, and I already emailed both Ren and Colby what I thought would be an appropriate letter. And it may be that it's not appropriate with your council office, because I think you guys have assisted other people with such a limited parking type situation. I believe you have.
Now, let me jump in for a second, Louise. I got the letter, but it was too late to put on the agenda. So we have to wait until, the next meeting to get an approval of it. But in the meantime, I think we can go forward and, we can work with the council office and the other people and, certainly get the ball rolling and get ourselves educated on the specifics of your situation. So we'll be ready at our next meeting.
Mhm.
Can I just say a couple things?
Sure.
Hello. Louise, I just read over the website. I know you're taking the stand that you've been given a directive by the councilman, or I don't know who gave it to you. What I'm reading online is that you're specifically supposed to approach the council member and they're supposed to arrange a formal meeting with all interested parties. And that's in an effort to mitigate whatever the parking situation you face is. And if they're unsuccessful, at that point, you move to the next stage. So the question to you is, are you at that stage where you've met with a council district and all interested parties and they have failed to provide any reasonable, acceptable mitigation, and they themselves admit it? In other words, the councilman's office is saying, please move to the next step.
Okay, so no, because what they requested from me was again a letter of support from our neighborhood council before the meeting would occur.
Please go to LA Department of Transportation parking.org and read the process. I think they're giving you craziness, and that it's not surprising. You're hearing it from several board members who've experienced it from the city. You get a different story from everyone. You got to go to the source, and everything's available online. Like I said, it's well presented. You need to have a formal meeting with the councilman's office, and they're supposed to invite not only the Department of Transportation, but all interested parties. I mean, I don't know what it's specific. I mean, you've talked about speed as opposed to parking. They're supposed to be going over all of these mitigation efforts that they can provide you. And no, I'm not saying they exist, but you have to have first cleared the fact that they can't mitigate it. And now you're on to the next step, which is moving forward. Remember that it involves a city study where they're actually going to they make it a federal case in order to get this done. So even after the petition, then there's a city study, a traffic study, and it's expensive. Of course, the city pays, but nevertheless, I mean, it's a huge process. My recommendation is before this council gets involved, we have a directive from the councilman's office that says they've made an effort to mitigate and they recommend moving to the next step. Otherwise, we're giving a letter of support prematurely because it's supposed to initially, you're supposed to, the councilman's office is supposed to make an effort to mitigate whatever problems are going on. We don't have an indication that they've tried and failed.
I'm not seeing this on the Department of Transportation, but again, I am going with what the councilman's office has provided me.
In your search engine, type in Los Angeles parking permit, and it's going to come up. Okay, it's not the LA Department of Transportation. You'll get all
So
the
I feel like
citations.
I'm being thrown from a department to another here, and it's a little frustrating, I have to tell you, Jonathan, because they are giving me this instruction here to come and discuss this with you, and you're giving me the instruction to go back to them and argue with them about this. So it's a little frustrating, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to the city. But we can help you. We'll help you navigate through all this. And I think Jonathan's pointed out an important formal requirement. On the other hand, there's some intermediate things that we might be able to help you with quickly,
Mhm.
that'll at least help. And, or at least you can know that some things aren't going to work. I mean, that's the other thing. You try some things and they don't work. So that's another element of it. But we'll talk offline, and I'm sure Tess will be able to help you as well. And we can help you get this rolling. It's going to be a long slog. It's not going to happen in weeks or even necessarily months. It may be a year or more before you really see some light at the end of the tunnel. But
Yeah, they mentioned that. They mentioned that, it will take at least a year, to get through all the steps. And part of the steps include the survey from the city. It includes the inspection from the city. All of these steps are part of the list of things that they have provided us. Yeah, it's all included in there. The petitioning to the neighborhood, but we can't prepare the petition until these prior steps have been accomplished. Once the petition has been turned in, then the Department of Transportation, they come and do their own inspection, the grid, the meaning, they do all of that. So it is part of the list.
yeah. Okay, good. Unless anyone has anything else that's going to add, we're going to move on to our regular agenda.
Before we end, let me just read from the website, and this is going around in circles, okay? Interest stage, phase 1. Contact your council district office to schedule a meeting regarding establishing a preferential parking district, PPD. Next point, the council district office will invite the interested parties to a meeting with the LA Department of Transportation and the council district office. The meeting will serve as an opportunity to discuss the nature of the parking issue, the need for a PPD, potential impacts, potential remedies, and PPD requirements. If no other remedy is found to solve the parking issue, the council district office will submit a letter of support to LA DOT, Department of Transportation, to proceed to phase 2. Phase 2, petition and study phase. The LA Department of Transportation will issue an official petition forms to lead residents to obtain signatures demonstrating support for establishing a PPD in the area. Petitions must be submitted for at least 6 blocks with signatures from at least 75% of residents on each block. Do you have this?
Jonathan, I'm getting a lot of resistance from you, and I'm getting very little support. And again, I am going to repeat what my councilman's office has provided me as a step to do. I have a list in front of me that includes all of these steps that you're talking about. However, the very first step is a letter of support from our neighborhood council. This is what they are requiring before they will even have the meeting, before all of these other steps are there. I have mentioned this now several times. So I'm a little surprised at your resistance with this, as if I'm not understanding the procedure, the length, everything that has to be done. I understand all the steps. It is not going to be a walk in the park. I understand all of that. So what I'm confronted with here is I am between the neighborhood council and the councilman's office, who are seemingly asking me to do contrary information. What I have to abide by, in my opinion, is what my councilman's office is asking me to do. And this right now is what they are asking me to do. And the argument as far as the steps and what the city is requiring, I don't think should be with my neighborhood council. It may be with the city of LA, but I think that they're very clear about everything that they are requiring. And I think that I'm very clear about what they're requiring.
Okay, good. I'm going to cut this off at this point. Louise, I'll be in contact with you offline here, and we'll move this forward as best we can.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Okay, getting back to our agenda, item 6.1, City Planning Department Community Plan. There's as we all know, a number of state legislative things, county requirements, and even city legislative things that are all impacting zoning and land use and all of that. I'd like to start working with the Governmental Affairs Committee to really go in depth into some of this and make sure that we're getting our community plan lined up with the state legislation, and or fighting where the state legislation clearly creates a hardship for our community.
You mean me, Ren?
Pardon me?
You mean me? You said government affairs.
Did I say we?
No. I mean, I'm happy to. I mean, you know how much I detest this thrusting of density upon us. That is not just.
No, I think you're a key person. Several other members of the board, maybe a little quieter, but they're all concerned about this legislation. And I was a little concerned when the planners made their presentation and rather cavalierly said, "Oh, well, we're not changing the zoning in all of this kind of gray area on the map." And they didn't mention at all the fact that there's been so much legislative change to the what does it mean to have an R1 lot? That effectively, if you're doing a community plan, you've got to deal with the realities of what somebody can build on the zoning that you're talking about. So I think we've got to, unfortunately, I think the planners will kind of be casual about a lot of this, and we need to put their feet to the fire and say, no, you've got to look at the realities of what this zoning actually means and what that could mean to our community if people were to build to their right. And anyway, so it's, something we've got to track. And Tess, I think you're doing a good job of staying up on the state legislative stuff. 6.2, funding of the Foreman Avenue angled parking. We're going to put that motion on hold. We're looking at other potential sources for this. I know Robert was concerned. A number of you are concerned about taking a big chunk out of our budget, which has been reduced year after year. And I think we're going to try and find some other source for this. Any comments on that, Robert?
Yeah, I do. Again, like last meeting, I'm confused. What we're saying is that money is no longer available to us, which is what I suspect. The $7,500 that we gave for the funding to do a final plan set for the Foreman Avenue project.
Yeah, it was $6,400. Yeah, that money got swept in with some other money, and we reallocated it.
Well, no. Ren, I just have to, and I'm sorry. I know I'm not the most popular guy around here anymore talking about this, but I was there, and so was Ryan, and so were you. Let me give you a little bit of a history then, in case you've forgotten. We had $7,500 allocated for Earth Day, and then that was canceled because of the pandemic. And it was May, June. It was very end of the fiscal year. We're going back to the 1920 city fiscal year. We're already 2 budgets ahead of it. And then, miraculously, a $7,500 proposal came forward, and the board did vote to fund that. And a invoice for $7,500 was submitted to the city. So I keep on harping on this because I want to know what happened. If the money is lost, well, let's learn from this and never make the same mistake again. But I want a final answer on what happened with that money. At the July board meeting, you said the city signed the contract and sent it to WRT. Something changed. If maybe you can address what happened with the city. They didn't, apparently we don't have a contract. That's been 2.5 years, no contract, and I don't know where the money is. So I think it's very fair to ask that question, what's going on? And if it's done, it's they gave us a no, and the money is lost because we're 2 budgets away, and that's been reallocated. The city has reallocated it to the general treasury, then so be it, and let's move forward. But I need to clean up what happened before I can vote on anything going forward.
Okay, well, to begin with, not asking you to vote on anything at this point, at least. My understanding, I was told at one point by a staff person in the city clerk's office that everything had been approved, the contract had been signed, and it would go out the next week. Now, clearly, I was lied to.
Yes.
So what else can I say? The money got at some point, and that's not even clear, got swept in with some other funding that was left over from other things. And it was sent back to us as if it was found money or new money. And Colby, operating in good faith, said, okay, let's quickly get some neighborhood grants, neighborhood purpose grants to get this money used in the community. And so we ended up with 3 grants that went out. I think 2 of them have already been, the money's been dispersed. But at the time, nobody told us that, that was the WRT money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't aware of it until, sort of afterwards when, they said, oh, by the way, kind of thing. It's, there was either some Machiavellian process that was going on in the city hall to keep us from doing what we wanted to do, or it was incompetence on the part of 1 or more staff people there in city hall. And I don't have the time to research that and go back and try and figure out who did what and why. And in some senses, it's not that important. I mean, we should be able to find some funding to do this if I can convince some people that, it's worthwhile to at least get a set of plans of what it is we're proposing and a rough cost estimate of what kind of money we're talking about. And with that, then we can go and look for, real money to actually get it built. So it's a 2-step process, but I'm sorry. In retrospect, if I had known it was going to be this crazy, I would have jumped up and down, 18 months ago. I would have been pounding the table and trying to get the city to at least tell us what's going on. But, I didn't spend enough time on it early on. And anyway.
But with all respect, right, and I mean that sincerely, and I'm speaking to you now, actually, as a member of the beautification partners and not a member of this committee. You still haven't said if we have the money or don't. You kept saying we're going to raise the money, but why would you raise money if you still, it's not a closed case with the city?
Oh, the money is gone. No,
well, then thank you.
$6,400. Pardon me?
That's the first time anybody has said that. So then that contract, you might as well, it's a dream. Nobody's working on a contract. We've been told this for
that
10 years.
Well, we could still, if we can raise the money, we could still go back over to WRT and see if they still want to do it.
Yeah, we can do anything we want.
Charges.
You
You're
just
right.
said something. I'm trying to get an answer to this question for 2.5 years. The money is gone. So shame on us. And let's make sure we don't do let's make sure we never make that mistake again, because 7,500 is a lot of money for this committee or for this council. So
Yeah,
let's
but when
make
you
sure we
say
never make-
gone, Robert, when you say gone, it wasn't gone 2.5 years ago. It was sitting over in City Hall effectively. And then they gave it back to us
No,
and
they didn't. When I was there-
reprogrammed. So the money was not lost to the community.
It was absolutely lost. I was very adamant at that time. I said, if this doesn't get approved, do we lose this money? There's only 1 month left in the fiscal year. If we lose it, if this doesn't go through, do we lose it? And I got a definite yes, because there was no time to repurpose that money. In which case, that money goes back to the city. We lose it. It's not lost money. I mean, it goes back to the city's general treasury. But the community lost that money. The community lost the investment that we could have made with that money. Now, and again, I'm not trying to make this personal. There's a lot of blame to go around. I was there, you were there, Ryan was there, half of the current council was there. So there's plenty of blame, but let's make sure, let's establish a benchmark here. We don't have the money. I'm going to walk away from this meeting saying the money was lost to the community, and the proposal is dead. Now, I asked Arthur at the last meeting, has the city denied that invoice, which I mailed to you and Fred. You both have a copy of the invoice. It's $7,500. It's very clear. The reason I was, everybody's been giving different numbers, but let's look at that invoice. He said, no, it hasn't been denied. It's clearly been denied. And you just admitted that it's been denied. They're not paying for this. And that brings up another issue, which we can get into. How realistic is this? You want to spend $7,500 on a building plans. We weren't able to get a contract for them on a final plan. And now you're going to raise a couple of $100,000, go back to the city and ask for a contract to build something on public property. I just don't think, I'd be happy to congratulate you if you can pull that off, but that's just not going to happen. So I'd rather see the money spent on something that we can, I was driving down on Ventura, on Vineland, heading down to Ventura. And I was startled by this beautiful landscaping on Vineland in Studio City, not in Toluca Lake. And they had a sign on it which said, courtesy of the Studio City Beautification Committee. And I said, well, now, just take that 7,500 and put it in Vineland and you have a beautiful median. So, and I know there's problems with that too. You have to maintain it. You have to order it. And you have to jump through a lot of hoops, but that's doable. Building a $200,000-$300,000 project on city property is just not going to happen. We have homeless, we have inflation, we have, unemployment. They're not going to build this 17 parking lots for you. And that's my opinion. I could be wrong. So why doesn't the beautification partners do? I know last time you said, well, that's just small things. We think of big things. Well, small things, when you add them up, are a big thing. And you have garbage that has to be picked up. Jonathan is correct. These right-of-ways are all strewn with garbage. We can put planting all the way down Riverside Drive on Vineland. It seems to me there's a lot of things that we can do that the community would see, instead of proposals that we've been looking at for 5, 10, 15 years. And not even getting into the raise the money and let's build it. Just tens of thousands of dollars. Almost all of the council's money has gone to these plans: streetscape, community development overlay. We have three projects with WRT, not just this one. And we have one with PlaceWorks, and we have something. When are we going to get real? And I know maybe I'm sounding insulting, and I don't mean to, Ren. I really don't. I work with you and have great respect for you. I have great respect for everybody else on the council. But I think we've been drinking the Kool-Aid for too many years. And beautification partners have been taking the council for granted and just using us for the money. But thank you. The first time anybody has admitted that the community lost that money and the contract is not viable. So now you want to go on to something else.
Okay, let me just say, I've said several times the community didn't lose the money. I stand by that. The money got spent on something else. And So that is what it is.
Yeah, but something else nobody knows. Again, you'd be going through this, jumping through hoops again, trying to find out where it was spent.
Well,
I mean, Russ, you know, Ren, it's nothing, there's nothing shameful. If we made a mistake, we made a mistake. Let's just look, make sure we don't make the same mistake again.
okay. You know, let's talk about this offline because the
Okay.
don't need to listen to us go back and forth.
No, I've said enough. I have the answer from you. We don't have any more. That's not on the table anymore.
Jonathan, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
I'll lower my hand. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to comment here. And so, Bob, you started off your comment by saying you're not the most popular guy in the committee, and I don't know that that's true, but I don't know that it matters because doing the right thing is what's important. And while
Thank you.
I have not agreed with all of your decisions, and I'm quite plain speaking about it when that's the case, I couldn't agree with you more here. And, you know, this decision and this plan and this project predates my involvement, but fiscal responsibility is hugely important to me. What happens to money? If it's a mistake and the money is lost, then it's lost. Let's just make sure we don't do that again. We are stewards of the public trust, and I take that very seriously. And I don't think a lot of people would hurl the money around that we do, city, state, county, country, if it were their own. So that's why you're going to see me exert extreme, maybe not extreme, but very careful fiscal responsibility. So yeah, I want to see, I'd like to see the bids that were put forward for this. I know you mentioned this at the last general board meeting, and I did ask Colby. I followed up on that, Ren. So I'm waiting to hear about that. And as far as the Vineland median, Bob, that you mentioned a moment ago, we did award almost $7,000 in 2 NPGs to Toluca Lake Beautification Partners at the end of the last fiscal year in May for the Vineland median, 2 chunks of the Vineland median, which are in, I guess, the western part of Toluca Lake, but not quite West Toluca Lake. And I drove by today, not a single blade of grass has been moved. There's not any activity showing whatsoever. So, you know, with a community that is full of needs, I want to make sure that you know, Beautification Partners doesn't continue to be the sole or primary recipient of these kinds of funds, when in the last several years, over 1/3 of our NPG grant funding has gone to them. And they don't even have the courtesy to deliver when the projects that they receive money from us, from the Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council. And it seems to me that Bob is onto something here, that you know, this council is somewhat taken for granted. I'd like to see that the money is being spent in a responsible and in a conscientious way. We don't really see evidence of that at the moment. So as stewards of the public interest, that's us, the neighborhood council, we have to make sure that we're careful of conflicts of interest, that the people to whom this money, or the organizations to whom this money is given, that they deliver, that the projects are realized. Otherwise, we need an explanation, some kind of report back, apology, or at the very least, a return of the money. So you know, I'm glad you're standing up for this, Bob. I'm with you, and let's just, you know, move on from here and make sure that we're doing the right thing. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Okay, let me move on. The update on the project 10057, 10063 Riverside Drive. The buildings that were there are being torn down. I think they're pretty much gone now. The post office has moved to trailers in the back. The School of Rock building has been torn down. So the project is underway. Still not clear who's going to be the tenants in the building. But has anyone gotten any feedback or any inkling on whether it's going to be Gelson's or someone else, or whether they're just going to build it and put it up for lease when it's finished? I don't know.
Well, we heard at the last council meeting, Robin mentioned that she knew somebody who knew the developer, and it was going to be a Gelson, definitely. But things change, obviously. that project will take 2 or 3 years to finish, and so things can change.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. State legislative agenda. Do we have a test? Do you want to do a final summary on this, or do you want to skip and do that next time?
Let's see, which item are we on? 6.4.
6.4, state legislative agenda, the final, the final outcomes on the things we were tracking.
Oh, right. Okay. So, so Ren, I got your, I saw this item on the agenda yesterday, and I emailed Fred to ask him, who put this on, and he said that you did. So I assumed that you would provide the summary. I have, of course, been tracking, which I am happy to do. And I'm also happy to provide a summary, but you neglected to ask me about it until 4:30 p.m. this afternoon in an email. So I think just out of professional courtesy and
Okay, I'm sorry, let's move on.
But listen, Ren, I would like to give a summary, but I want to do it when I'm prepared to do so. So,
of course. Yeah, no, it was one of those things that we didn't give you a heads up soon enough, and I apologize for that.
That's all right. But before we go on, may I ask the committee if they would like that summary or not? Because I will provide a summary, I will prepare a summary, but only if the committee would like it. Otherwise, can we?
Okay. Yeah, should we do a show of hands? I see Robert's already got his hand up.
Bob, do you want a legislative summary of the land use legislation? Yes or no?
Yeah, I used to do that.
Okay.
And it's a lot of work. So I would say, you can just pick, if you can cherry pick just the ones that really affect the community.
Well,
For example,
it'll take some time and analysis, but if the committee wants it, I'll do it. Jonathan?
Okay. I don't see any other hands up. Does anybody else want it? So work for Tess if you don't want it. Oh, there goes. Okay, Robert.
Ron? Okay, Jonathan? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'll have something put together for the next Plum meeting.
Just one question for you,
Yes.
Tess. Do you have on that list SB 2097?
I don't have any list in front of me at the moment.
Okay.
You could email me. In fact, if all of the members of the committee with any concerns about specific legislation or issues can email me, I'll make sure to include those in my summary next month. All right.
Well, this was signed by the governor a couple of weeks ago, and it really speaks to what the pain that Louise is feeling, which.
Tell me the bill number again, Bob.
SB 2097. Newsom signed that. I think he signed it 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it follows the progression, if I can just to apprise the committee of what's happening. We all know Sacramento is driving higher density and less parking. It started with the TOC that was particular only to LA, in that you cut the parking in half. Standard building code is 1 space per bedroom. TOC cut it in half. And 2097 just says, you know what? You don't, as a developer, you don't have to provide any parking at all if you buy a transit zone. So they just jumped over TOC and made it a voluntary for developers. So this can have a big effect, and I just wanted to bring it up.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Okay.
So less parking.
All right. Does anybody else want to mention specific bills right now? Ren?
No.
Okay.
Moving on to 6.5, the regional housing needs assessment. Does anyone want to talk about that?
I've been sort of following along with that, and I just got an email today that I think is worth mentioning. The SCAG leadership attended a Vienna social housing field study. And this is interesting because Vienna in Austria has actually developed a very interesting and workable and successful model, which I'm rather pleased and surprised to hear that SCAG knows about it and is looking at it to potentially model, because as one of the more successful cities that has adopted this. Vienna has been overcrowded for since the end of World War I, extremely inflated land prices. And it was so crowded in Vienna at the end of World War I, and the rents were so high that people rented out bed space during the day for the night shifts. So up until now, they are taxing the most expensive dwellings. The high tax on high value properties tended to reduce their value and to undercut the value of urban land. There's a lot of interesting historical subject matter here with how Vienna has handled overcrowding and reduced inflationary values on land. So they've attacked the problem where it exists, which is the price of urban land. And I'm very, very interested to see what comes out of SCAG as a consequence of this, because for once they're looking at a very successful model, which has actually been working for some time now. So that I wanted to let people know about. And as far as RENA, I'm keeping an eye on it, and I will report back any developments I think the committee needs to hear next month. Thank you.
Okay. Update on the Toluca Lake clock. It still looks like it might be possible by the end of the year, although there's been some other hiccups. So stay tuned. The city has, as far as I know, has signed off on everything, and now it's just a case of finding the contractors to build it and to get it delivered. 6.7 update on developer COAs. No one, at the last meeting, I asked if anyone wanted to take this on, and no one has stepped up. If, I think it's useful for the neighborhood council to have a set of guidelines for developers before they show up before us, so we can, have some general policies and directions of what the community wants and doesn't want. However, it's a fair amount of effort to put all that together. And for our, we've got one, but it's fairly general and short. And I think it could easily be added to and built out, but I'm not in a position to do that. And if no one else is able or willing, then I think we'll just have to back burner it. Maybe next year there'll be new people elected to the GTLNC who will step up and update.
Ren, you're speaking of the draft that Brandon produced before he stepped down from the committee. There's nothing.
It was adopted, Tess.
What's that?
It was adopted.
It was okay. So can it be put on the website, or what? Where is it now? It should be on the website. I thought it went to the website. Not that I'm aware of. Can you please send me the final draft that you have, Ren, and I'll make sure it gets on the website. Or I'll ask Colby and Robin to get it on the website. I mean, it's better than nothing. It's general, and we can always fill it out. Now I'm doing the legislative tracking and updates, and I'm doing the spreadsheet of project tracking. So I've got two items that I tend to on a regular or semi-regular basis. So Ron, Robert, Fred, your co-chair, Jonathan, if one of you wants to take this on, I think it's important to have that, Ren, and I would like to see it fleshed out as well. But what we have is certainly better than nothing, and what we have should be posted on the website.
Yeah, I thought it had been. I'm sorry.
Can you send me the latest draft, Ren?
Sure.
Okay. Jonathan, you have a question?
Yeah, this is what I said earlier. It's unclear to me what are the shortcomings. I mean, I don't want a 20-minute discussion on it, but in 30 seconds, it's not that old. He only did it within the last year. So I'm wondering, Ren, what do you feel is missing or disadvantageous to stakeholders about it the way it reads? What's
I think it's fine as a starting point, but there's a number of issues that aren't covered that could be. You look at other neighborhood councils, there's one who has a 26-page COA. So, I mean, there's a lot that could be covered, and it's up to the neighborhood councils to, be as elaborate or not. And of course, there's a number of neighborhood councils that don't have anything. So at least we have something at this point. But I think I could get into it, but I don't think we want to spend the time now. I think it needs, and especially if nobody's able or willing to step up and take it on, why then we just set it aside as something that could be done. There's a lot of things that could be done by our committee that, we're not doing. So we can, we can have this as one of the back burner things.
If you don't mind me saying, I think it's always a good idea to have general policies, and that's what Brandon had attempted to do. Spending a lot of time on it, though, one of the things I noticed about our neighborhood council is we're around 15,000 constituents, whereas the average neighborhood council is around 44,000. So we're significantly smaller than a lot of neighborhood councils. I'm not seeing that we actually need a huge document, because it really isn't an enforceable document. I mean, it's general guidelines.
I'm sorry, John. Let me stop you there, because I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about it and how much it's needed or not needed or what it should have or not have if nobody is able or willing to do it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to use the power of the chair to cut you off and say, let's move on to the next item.
I don't think there is that power of the chair to cut people off, but nevertheless, my point is, if there's a need for something, well, then my interest in doing it rises. But if there's no apparent need for it, then why would we invest a lot of time into it? Thank you.
Okay. Proposal for a West Toluca Lake monument and signage. Jonathan, you want to present that or Tess?
If you wouldn't mind, I'll start. Tess.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
All right. Well, first of all, what I'd like to say is when I sent that to Ren and to Fred, it didn't read like that. That wasn't the proposal. What I actually proposed was 2 signs, because it's not about West Toluca Lake. The premise of the idea is that the neighborhood council, it's come up even in this meeting, that one should focus, there has to be focus on benefits for stakeholders in raising the perception that there is a neighborhood council. I think we'd probably be very surprised at how many residents in Greater Toluca Lake don't even know there is a neighborhood council. By having signage, and I'm not calling this strictly local community signs, which most neighborhood councils do. They don't usually put so much emphasis on the neighborhood council. But my proposal actually included 2 signs, one wherever this committee thinks a second sign should be, and one where I identified the northwest corner where there's a little strip of land that's extremely visible to probably thousands of people a day on the corner of Vineland and Riverside. That is a problematic piece of land that if it was repurposed, it would be not only doing something good for the neighborhood council, the community, but also taking away a problem, which is the present use of that little strip of land. Nevertheless, what I think is important is to have an oversight. If the neighborhood council, if each of us were looking at what is the intended result of what we're doing, then probably we wouldn't be spending $850 on bags to be given away somewhere, 250 shopping bags, because I cannot in my best mind understand how that furthers the goal, which is to increase the participation rate. Whereas a sign, on the other hand, it certainly costs more than $850. And there is money flowing right now to the tune of $2 million toward beautification partners that I'm not saying it's doable, but I'm saying it's not doable. If there's a will, then right now is a very good moment where we have an identified piece of land. I do think 2 signs would be more practical because it establishes the point of a continuity. You have at least 2 signs that look like each other. They identify the local community. If you want to talk about the West Toluca Lake sign, I've given a couple different samples of what these signs look like. But as I said, that intersection of Riverside and Vineland probably has maybe 5,000 to 10,000 people passing through it a day who stop because of the traffic signals and move slowly. And it would certainly be one of the most seen positions in our community, much more so than anything on Riverside Drive. But I do believe that a second sign somewhere else, similar in design, ought to be pursued so that 2 signs go somewhere, not just in West Toluca Lake. What I hoped from this committee is if this committee could agree that this is a worthwhile endeavor, is to simply agree on a letter to go to beautification partners as prioritizing this in that $2 million that they will be spending with Caltrans in the community. And it doesn't have to be on Caltrans land. It can be on city land, from what I understand. So that's the purpose of my proposal, is to do something that elevates the neighborhood council to make the stakeholders cognizant, because so many of them are not aware that there is a neighborhood council and they're therefore not participating in it. There's just simply no access for them to know it's here other than word of mouth. The one area of town I can assure you that's very clued in is Toluca Village, as we call it, because of the work of the homeowners, and West Toluca Lake, because it's generally because of Tessa's hard work to pull that area together. The sign would touch all other areas. 2 signs would be better. Thank you.
So what you're proposing is that the GTLNC send a letter to beautification partners requesting that they entertain the idea of having signage as you described it. I think the letter needs to describe it in some more specific ideas or proposals, locations, for example, or scale, size, that kind of thing. If it's just a general, we'd like it if you did this, I'm not sure that beautification partners would have much to work with. I mean, unless someone on the beautification partners were to take up that, that request and turn it into more specific kinds of proposals that could actually get funded. But I don't know, Tess, do you have some input?
Well, why don't we go to Bob first, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
I just have a few questions for Jonathan. What kind of a sign are we proposing, Jonathan? Is it a permanent concrete structure? Is it just a metal sign or something like that stuck in the ground?
Good question. I wouldn't have sent a proposal to Fred and to Ren without giving some samples, and I recommended they include them in the meeting notes, but they didn't. So you're not seeing what I sent, nor are you seeing that I suggested the sign be from 30 to 50% dedicated to the neighborhood council and the other remainder to the local community. The signs, I don't actually have a strong opinion on what type of sign. There's so many to choose from, but there are certainly signs in good taste and signs in bad taste, but they have everything to do with the positioning. I also gave Ren and Fred, the northwest corner and a picture of that intersection from the center, from the other side of the intersection, showing that particular place. So you should be able to see all that if all of this was provided to you, but it wasn't. So, that when I give something to the committee chairs to propose something, number one, they're not supposed to change the proposal, which is what happened. Is it was for 2 signs, and it was specific to all of the questions that have been asked so far. It included a lot of the information Ren just described. But what I would say is, my goal is not to nail the nature of the sign, but rather beautification partners generally have, I haven't seen awful things go in. I haven't seen, I think there are some really horrendous things that have been done in LA to celebrate art that I think are horrible. I don't see any of that in Greater Toluca Lake. So I'm confident that good taste would be used. I have no reason to believe otherwise. So my goal is not to preoccupy this committee with the actual design, but rather send a letter asking for priority treatment of such 2 signs. This committee is in a better position to choose the location of the other sign rather than me, but I don't want it to be one sign because I don't think it should be about West Toluca Lake. I think it should be about Greater Toluca Lake, and you can only establish that by doing at least 2 signs, if not more. But I think these signs are extremely important there is no other way to get across the point of a community neighborhood council so effectively than having a permanent fixture that gives branding to what it is we're doing here. And it would go an awful long way, I think, in the community. So, and as I said, I provided an actual location that I think is absolutely perfect. And you can actually visualize. I think I gave 3 or 4 samples of the types of signs used.
Jonathan, before you continue, Fred and Ren, if you have that available, could you just screen share it with us?
Yeah, I would say the same thing.
Yeah, and then,
Yeah.
I think the idea of signs is good. And Jonathan had some time ago sent some signage possibilities to me for another purpose. But if any of the ones that you submitted for this purpose are similar or the same, it would be, it'd have to be something that's indestructible.
Very different tests. It's a different location, and that was strictly a community sign for West. It's very different, actually, the nature of the signs.
If Fred and Ren have it and can screen share, that would be great. Can you guys do that?
With Fred's okay, and of course Jonathan's okay, I'll forward it out to the rest of the committee members, and we'll have it on the agenda for next meeting.
Well, but we could screen share it right now and dispose of the item completely. If are you able to do that, Ren or Fred?
No, I'm not. Fred?
Fred,
let me see if, hold on, let me see if I can get it. Hold on.
While we're waiting, Jonathan makes a good point. I think I was living in Toluca Lake for 5 years before I learned about a neighborhood council. And that's when I decided to get active within the community. But we've done a lot more outreach since then, to be honest and fair to the council. But I think what Jonathan is, I support his ideas of a sign and letting the community know that we exist with something more permanent than just something temporary. Yes.
just serving hot dogs, Bob, like you and I did.
I love hot dogs.
Yeah, you remember back in the day, you and I were
Yes,
flinging dogs at the last National Night Out.
you had to remind me, huh? That may be my retirement.
Okay, I'm back. I only see an email from Jonathan, which was a second email saying about, to evaluate the neighborhood determination, the 2 signs, et cetera, et cetera. And then you said, I recommend including pictures of the sign and samples I sent you in a previous email. And I don't seem to find that previous email, Jonathan. Perhaps you could have the power to screen share if you want, or you could forward me that email again. But I searching your name in the email and I do not see the previous email for some reason.
You know, we're wasting time, everybody's valuable time. We're gonna have to put it to the next meeting because I wouldn't be able to find it right away either. I have so many emails.
Okay, well, let's move on then. Legislation of possible interest to the committee. Is anyone aware of any city council, LA County proposals that are floating out there that we need to be aware of and need to work on?
Well, we've got a couple coming up that went through the Government Affairs Committee meeting, but I might as well just mention those to folks here now. We passed a motion at the Government Affairs Committee meeting last week on Council File 22-1100-S5, which is a ballot measure that is on the November 8th, 2022 ballot, which has no dollar amount listed for the cost of developing, constructing, or acquiring up to 5,000 additional units of low-income rental housing units in each of the Los Angeles City County Council districts. Our committee voted to oppose this council file. So that's going to the general board next week. My big problem, well, among many other problems, is this is a blank check. And we all thought that tiny homes was going to solve the problem. And now, there's just too many open questions. And this is such a broadly drafted item that the cost could just go through the roof very easily. And I object strenuously to that. And that's the only item that I've tracked for the last couple of weeks. So you'll see that discussed and voted on at the next general board meeting on October 18th, on Tuesday.
Good, thank you. Let's see, are there any other items, new business?
I'd like to ask Jonathan, since you're new to the committee, are you getting the planning, city planning early notification reports?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I just got one today. I'm going to forward it to you, or got one yesterday. So if you follow the links, ask for them to add you to the distribution list. This is very useful because it lays out, I believe these come out once a month, sometimes more often, the proposed plans in the various city council districts. So we can look at what's.
All right, I'll take a look.
Yeah.
Also, while I'm speaking, it's September 30th was the date that Fred and Ren received the pictures.
Yeah, I see that email, Jonathan, but only the second one, not the first one. I don't have it on my thing.
I'll resend it.
Okay, one other thing, I just noticed this on my notes, 4305 Lancashire Boulevard, which is the BF Goodrich tire store there at Whipple. There's a project being proposed there. We don't have any detail on it yet, but we will try and find out what they're proposing. But it's kind of a hodgepodge of land uses there, right on Lancashire from Whipple going north. So it'll be interesting to see what they're planning to build there. We'll get back to you on that. Seeing nothing else, our next meeting is November 5th, 6:30 on Zoom, and we will see you then.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you.